Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
You know, it's been raining on and off for months, and it literally takes four-wheel drive to get out of the driveway. I'm expecting to see trees falling over. I'm expecting to see black mold. I'm expecting to see all kinds of flooding here in Missouri, and it's going to be nice to be out of leaving Missouri. That's going to be kind of nice. What a mess. What a mess. Well, thank you, Jason, for engineering today's broadcast here at USA Prepares. I'm Vincent Finelli. With us in Montana, Rich Scheben. Welcome, Rich Scheben.
Well, thank you, Vincent. Yeah, send some of that moisture over here. We're supposed to get some moisture this week, but we've had weeks and weeks and weeks of dryness and clouds, and it's crazy how we're in the 40s and 50s pretty much every day for highs. It's just from March, it's just ridiculous. So who knows what's going on?
Well, Rich, I was awake last night in the middle of the night, and I'm hearing this tremendous downpour and slamming on the roof, breaking shingles. And I was thinking, whose rain are we stealing? Whose rain is this? Because it's been almost every day to every other day for months, literally. The cows walk through the fields and trash them. I mean, it's mud everywhere. We've got standing water all over. The creeks are overflowing. The culverts have washed out. The road has washed out. I was out there with our son and with the backhoe and the front end loader. So we had two pieces of earth moving equipment, and we were fixing the road because the ditches, these potholes off the side of the road are so deep, it will flip a car over. And the road's not wide enough for two vehicles, so one has to pull off into the ditch while the other slowly goes past, in opposite directions. So we were fixing the road, and I'm sure it's all washed away since Sunday, I'm sure. And, the mail people can't get the mail trucks down the road because, they pull off a little bit to get to mailboxes, along the roads, and those have washed away. It's pretty messy out here. Fences are falling over. And I'm looking at the studio window.
How many inches of total precip do you get a year, and how much have you had over this winter? Do you know?
I don't know those numbers. I don't know those numbers, but my guess is 3x.
Okay.
That's my guess.
Well, here where I
and
live,
when it comes down,
pardon me, I was just saying
here's the interesting.
We only get 15 inches of total precip a year, Vince, and that includes snow.
All right, let me tell you why it's a problem, and just one little other reason why it's a problem. I mean, besides the roads washing out, besides the flooding, besides the underground telecommunications wiring that it's buried in the ground maybe 30, 40 years ago, before our time, by a company that is no longer in business called Contel. I guess that would be Consolidated Telephone. So the problem is the wiring is underground, and it's wearing out. The insulation's wearing out. So the telephone landline wiring is shorting out and breaking. So then you add that to all this moisture that we have, and people who have septic systems, the way they work is there's a tank in the ground, and the solids and the liquids go into this tank running downhill, so it's lower than the toilets and lower than the sinks. So just gravity takes the liquids and solids downhill into the septic tank, which separates solids from liquids, and then the liquids flow out the other end of the septic system into a leach field. And a leach field is just pipes with holes in it, like 4-inch pipes. You might see them used as leaders away from the houses. But they have perforations in them about, let's say a half an inch. They're set in crushed stone with vinyl or plastic over them, black plastic, and then they're covered with dirt. And the idea is that the liquids will percolate into the ground, the grasses will absorb the moisture, the sun will dry out the ground, and it'll just keep working. The water will evaporate through the ground, and the yard, if you will, the front yard or the backyard, whoever has these things, those yards will be nice and moist, and the grass will grow, but it won't be mushy. Well, now what's happening is there's so much water from above, from the sky, we'll call it rain, that the ground is so soggy that anyone who has a septic system in the Ozarks, where this is occurring, or anywhere for that matter, the ground cannot accept any more moisture. So septic systems are backing up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no,
which is another
problem.
Health hazard.
Yeah, especially with telecommunications. But don't forget, 5G is coming to the rescue.
Oh, thank goodness.
That was total sarcasm.
So good. I know. By the way, Rich, we have an extraordinary delay. I just want to let you know that if you and I happen to step on each other, we are averaging between 1 and 2 seconds delay. So my voice going out to from Missouri to Minnesota at the moment is taking between 1 and 2 seconds. And then it may take 1 or 2 seconds for your voice to get to me. So in case if we step on each other, that's why. It's not intentional. I just want to let the class know that that's what's happening.
Copy that.
Okay. So what would you like to talk about?
Well, let's talk about some news in the flash real quick, okay? We can talk about the virus. We've all been talking about the virus. When I came on the air Friday for 10 minutes, I'd be more than happy to go over what I discussed regarding the distractions for declassification and all the agendas and fear. I think fear is a big thing and it's being taken out of context. And I think when I gave that analogy about being lost in the woods, when you see a hiker being lost in the woods, they don't die of being killed by a bear or a mountain lion. They die of fear. They die of panic. And I think we all need to take a deep breath. I'm not saying this isn't a bad thing. I'm just saying that we all need to relax a little bit. And, one thing Vince and I have been talking about for years is moving out to the country, getting away from high-populated areas, growing a garden, raising animals, maybe hunting and fishing, botany, which is harvesting edible and medicinal plants is the context I talk about, living off-grid, and just relearn those lost 19th century skills. Because we're teaching our youth how to push buttons and be politically correct. They do not have any skills. So we need to increase our skill sets. I'm not saying get rid of 21st century technology, but a lot of that technology is killing us, just like the chemicals, just like the biologicals. I mean, we're literally our bodies are being torn apart, and our immune system is disintegrating. So what I want to do, Vince, is mention a few articles real quick here. Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi's new stimulus bill mandated nationwide ballot harvesting, which allows party operatives to return other people's ballots to polling places without any limit on the number of ballots. This is disgusting. Basically, she rejected a bipartisan rescue package and held our sick Americans basically, it's like putting a gun to somebody's head. It's like blackmail, saying you don't pass my bill with all my pork in it, and I'm not going to give the people a rescue package unless you're part of the super elite, the big corporations. And keep in mind, about 80% of small business are the people who are employed in this nation. That's probably under 10 people per person on average. And one of the other things she's demanding is racial, gender diversity in corporate recipient. I mean, the best person for the job no longer matters. And her daughter basically said, Christine, that Rand Paul's neighbor was right to assault him. You know, this is getting to the point, and all this political correctness, like this racial and gender and transgender, all this stuff, you know, this is all part of the political correctness. And, you know, there's a lot of articles coming out, too, as far as the death toll would be a lot lower if the media and the Democrats actually didn't do this cruel impeachment hoax. And it's not just impeachment. It was Russia, 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 Ukraine, Ukraine, Ukraine. I mean, it's gotten to the point that it's one thing after the other. This is not a coincidence. They're basically implying that no crisis ever goes to waste. And I'm blue in the face saying this, but I can't say it enough. When you basically use group identity politics, a.k.a. victim group or protectionist group status, to get a job and keep a job, based on this gender thing, this transgender thing, this sexual orientation thing, this skin pigmentation thing, what it's designed to do has nothing to do with synergy or equality, fairness, tolerance, diversity. These are all politically correct buzzwords that have been used as tools and weapons to divide the American people. When you demand to lower the bars of standards and expectations for a job, you're insulting the work ethic, ability, and intelligence of all these people. You're degrading them. You're disrespecting them. You don't empower a group or a nation that way. That's how you destroy a nation. That's how you destroy a middle class. This is all meant to be submissive and make the people have their will broken. This is why suicides are up, obesity is up, drug use is up, alcoholism is up. This is all done by design. It's done to destroy America and reward mediocrity. It's done to eliminate opportunity and productivity for a whole nation. You know, I've given so many excerpts, and I've read so many quotes from Mark Zelinsky, the Frankfurt School, Cloward and Piven, the Communist Manifesto, you know, showing how drunk we are of the Kool-Aid of political correctness and how this has set the stage for government interventions, confiscation, and redistribution of wealth from the bottom 93% to the wealthiest of all elite in the world. And that's why we have an unsustainable system, because, and I've gone over this in detail, okay, when you look at demographics, the headwinds for future rate of growth, our debt, our credit, our pension crisis, valuations, everything is set to create inequality and keep the status quo and basically create an incognito caste system for the rest of us. And then you look at central bank monetary policies, Keynesian economics, and our demographic situation, along with group identity politics, we are set. This is a real thing, okay? We are in a bear market. We are probably in a recession. The Democrats and the left in Hollywood have been calling for a breakdown in our economic system on purpose so they could say Trump should not be elected. You know, this is it's all propaganda, hoaxes, false flags, and lies, everything. And after the break, Vince, I'm going to go through, if it's okay with you, a few more news in a flash just to get some, give the people updated on what's going on behind the scenes.
Sure, sounds great to me. We'll be right back. Rich Scheben in Montana. Rich Scheben's with us live in Montana. Rich, news in a flash. Please continue.
Well, thank you, Vince. Next article, major crime surge in New York City. Whistleblowers say D.C. cops ordered to downgrade crimes to make cities seem safer. See, if everybody's bought and paid for, if the true problem with America is corruption and manipulation, everybody needs to be fired. Everybody needs to start all over. And as you know, I have stuck up for police, but it's gotten to the point where when people only care about manufacturing the perception of their self-importance and self-preservation, then there's no way any commerce can continue, any government or country can succeed with prosperity. Next article, video. California not allowing criminals to come into stores and steal whatever they want up to $950 under the new arrest policy. Not making this up, folks. These are all published articles in the public domain. Next article, Border Patrol allows hundreds of Mexican vehicles to cross into U.S. despite Trump's order. Next article, Soros-backed group have huge donation to prosecutor who dropped Jussie Smollett charges. Everything is rigged. Everybody's getting bought and paid for, is on the take. It's terrible. Next article, Chicago mayor defends releasing illegal alien who then sexually assaulted 3-year-old girl. Next article, Obama administration depleted stockpile of N95 masks and never restored them. Next article, half Americans don't trust the mainstream media's COVID-19 coverage. Really? I'm surprised it's only half. It's probably like 90%. Next article, CDC admits in federal court it does not have studies to support claim vaccines do not cause autism. I'm going to read that again. CDC admits in federal court it does not have studies to support claim vaccines do not cause autism. Next article, 53 times the established media said Chinese or Wuhan virus. But if Trump says it, oh my God, he's a racist, he's a bigot, he's a xenophobe, you name it. Next article, Hillary Clinton calls to make voting by mail the norm in 2020. Next article, just declassified 80 pages of lost Hillary Benghazi emails. Congress fights to cover the crimes. Imagine my shock. Everybody in Congress is bought and paid for by the lobbyists, the PACs, the special interests, etc. Next article, California Governor Newsom allows voting by mail because of coronavirus. See, what we need, folks, really desperately is we need these declassifications that we've been calling for to come to fruition. From Epstein to Uranium One, the Clinton Foundation, to the FISA warrants documents, and the geoengineering and weather modification tools. And when I say geoengineering, for those of you, we say this all the time, geoengineering is not only in the context of what you would call chemtrails or refer to them. Geoengineering is now proven that man-made geoengineered bioweapons are a thing of the future, okay? So get out of urban, suburban America. I'm not saying all of you. I'm saying every state has rural areas, and start thinking outside the box. Start growing your own food. Maybe live off-grid. Start being a little more self-sufficient. I'm not saying to go out and drill your own oil and refine your own gasoline, but there are ways to survive a system that is so corrupt and so rigged you have no chance of even getting opportunities, especially based on your whatever group you're in, because that's what it's all about. And that includes declassifying all documents related to Barack Obama and the billions of dollars of cash given to Iran. We need to declassify 911 and all documents related to alternative energies. If you did this, Mr. Trump, you would be a hero to the American people and the free world, the whole world. Next article, police in Virginia investigate teens spitting on produce at grocery store. I'm seeing videos and articles all over the country about people spitting on and licking produce and putting it back. Next article, Italian virologist says concerns over racism crippled Italy's coronavirus response. That's happened here. It's happening everywhere, folks. Political correctness is crippling the free world.
And we're going into a break, bottom of the hour break. We'll be right back with news in a flash. Rich Scheben. Rich Scheben's with us live in Montana. Rich, please continue with news in a flash.
Yeah, I'm looking at Zero Hedge during the break here. It says there's an article that U.S. domestic flights could completely shut down due to the pandemic because passenger flow is down more than 80% this weekend. So, crazy times, you guys. Next article. SoftBank sells $41 billion in assets to finance more stock buybacks. Vince, I've spent hours defining stock buybacks and how it basically, in a nutshell, enriches the CEOs and executives of the corporations at the cost to the little people. Next article, Tommy Robinson arrested for restraining perp who sexually assaulted his 8-year-old daughter. Don't you know that pedophiles are protected? I say that tongue-in-cheek. It's unbelievable. This is why adult mutual consensual sex should be the lingo of the day. Next article, World Health Organization urges people to go cashless because dirty banknotes can spread the virus. Remember the list I gave on Friday of some of the agendas that the powers that be want to do? That's one of them. They want to go cashless. That means there's no accountability. So the same rules, laws, and accountability for every person in American soil or the world is about to go to be irrelevant. Next article, Bernie supporting Denver councilwoman encourages coronavirus patients to attend mega rallies. I said that before. It's worth repeating. Next article, Spike Lee compares black Trump supporters to house slaves. Well, house slave Candace Owens, when she went to Congress a couple times, I kind of recall that she ate Congress's lunch. I think she also ate their breakfast and dinner. Next article, Warren supporters cry sexism over Super Tuesday flop. Here we go. Everything is controversial, racist, bigot, sexist, misogynist, conspiracy theorist, homophobe, intolerant, violent, hater with an anti-inflammatory every word, and ism, ist, and phobia on the back of every word. It never continues, even though these words don't even have meaning anymore because they're said every 5 minutes of the day by the left. They keep on saying it. Next article, high school closes trans bathroom after sexual assault. Well, this has happened many times. Next article, motor voter fraud in Illinois. If we don't fix voting, voter fraud, and election fraud, we can kiss any legitimacy of voting for the future goodbye. You know, Vince, and here's one article. Truck drivers press on to stop shortages amid coronavirus. I want to say thank you to the American truck drivers who are continuing to work hard and do what they need to do. So it's just a small thank you from me to the truck drivers of America. Vince, regarding the coronavirus, I know it's been over talked about and over paranoid and a lot of hypochondriac things going on, and which makes people more sick. But let's talk about some of the agendas that this is creating for the left, like dissolving paper currency, trying to regain government credibility back, martial law, big tech takeover, reinforce a caste system, possibly hide pedophilia indictments, and by them saying they're going into quarantine and then they die and then they're never heard from again because they went to New Zealand or the Cook Islands or an underground bunker somewhere. Is this an alibi to crash the economy, to consolidate power with the big corporations, to manufacture hyperinflation and continue to have the little guy lose more purchasing power? You know, the Democrats and the left have always said never let a crisis go to waste. So as they basically foment more hate, propaganda, lies, false flags, and hoaxes, is this a way for them to go after dissenters and patriots? And one question we need to ask ourselves, which I think we all know the answer to, would the elite actually go and geoengineer a virus to kill people, a disease, to kill people, in order to cover up crimes? You know, these people say there's no coincidences, and I believe we're at that time where everything is engineered, and that includes the propaganda and the hoaxes. You know, all this Russia-Ukraine impeachment stuff, second-hand, third-hand, fourth-hand information, rumors, gossip, propaganda. You know, Jeff Foxworthy should come out with a new joke instead of a redneck joke. They should say, well, if you know anybody, or if you're one of the persons who repeat second-hand, third-hand, fourth-hand gossip, rumors, propaganda, and hoaxes, you might be a Democrat. That should be the new joke. And you know, it could be that, you know, with so many people on the left. I mean, Dianne Feinstein had a Chinese spy working for her for 20 years. Look at all the people on the left that are basically Bloomberg. He makes a fortune through China. You know, all these people are using China on the left, one of our biggest enemies who own most of our debt to bring down the U.S. for our own loss of freedoms and liberties. And is this a way for China to buy up U.S. and European stocks on the cheap? Is this a way to end rallies, protests, civil rights, and voting by mail only so they can fix it? All these events, to me, I don't believe in these coincidences. Why did some of these tests for the coronavirus create so many false positives? Is it to create more hysteria? And by the way, I'm hearing a lot, Vince, I don't know if you've heard about the hydroxychloroquine. Okay, it's an old anti-malaria drug, and a lot of people are coming online and praising this, while Dr. Fauci, who's standing right next to President Trump, is not, because it's so-called not approved. Or is it maybe because the pharmaceutical industry is getting the profits? I think everything I'm mentioning is speculation. But I think all these things need to be researched and discussed, and we, the people, need to make the decisions. Vince?
Well, I can tell you that Dr. Fauci is no longer standing next to President Donald Trump. He's disappeared. And I think that's because he disagreed with what the president was saying. And also that treatment for the coronavirus has killed someone. So actually, we don't know whether it's a viable treatment or it's not. And there's so much disinformation, misinformation, lies, propaganda, false information, false flags going on. It's very difficult to ferret out the truth. But here's what I can tell you. I can tell you that gasoline, wholesale price of gasoline 3 weeks ago was $1 a gallon, which is staggering how low that is. That's 3 weeks ago. Today, in the New York Harbor, wholesale price of gasoline is 36 cents a gallon. Propane is 20 cents a gallon, wholesale price, right this moment. Now, why am I telling you this? Because there are some who believe that there's a possibility that, and these are government types who have said, no, it doesn't look like we're going into a recession. I've got to say that's nonsense. I have to say we are in the second Great Depression. That's my take on it. So I'm kind of standing on a small island with just a few people making that statement. But I believe that we are in the second Great Depression. And during the first Great Depression, unemployment was about 25%. Now we're looking at about 30% in a couple of weeks. 30% unemployment. Those would be government-type numbers, and they lie anyway. So if they're lying, they're probably lying optimistically, and it's probably even worse than that. People are not going to work. I know nurses who are not going to work because they're terrified. I know parcel-type drivers, people who deliver packages, they don't want to go to work. People who work at supermarkets and restaurants don't want to go to work. People who work in restaurants are being told you can't go to work in lots of places. Businesses are being shut down. As you mentioned, the airline traffic is down about 80% over the weekend. The airlines are begging for bailouts now, as are so many other sectors of the marketplace. And gold and silver should be skyrocketing, but it's not. It's not, because it's manipulated. And pretty much everything is manipulated. We have, I can tell you for a fact, that if you want to buy automotive parts, let's say that you want to buy 6 oil filters for a common vehicle, and you go to one of those national chain type auto stores or a regional type auto store. And those oil filters happen to come from China, whether they're in an orange package, a black package, a blue package, or a blue and white and red package. Many of them, if not most of them, come from China. And if you wanted to buy 6 of one kind, let's say you have a typical Chevrolet automobile, a common one, nothing special, We're not talking about a Lamborghini or a Maserati. We're talking about just plain old Chevrolet. And you wanted to buy an oil filter. But you said, well, let's get 6, so we have some more. You probably can't get them. I'm not exaggerating. We're finding auto parts are very, very difficult to get, especially the top quality ones that you really want. The ones with names that you would recognize. The best, the equivalent of original equipment, very difficult to get right now. And it looks like it's getting worse. And the auto parts stores are in such chaos, in my opinion, that they're making a lot of mistakes. A lot of mistakes. And I'll just leave it there.
Okay, Vince, let me comment on what you just said. Oil right now, crude is 23 and change. Brent's about 30 and change. That's I never thought in my life I would see those kind of prices. And, you mentioned gold and silver and how everything is. This is why I talk about corruption and manipulation in so many different contexts, because it's so appropriate. We have, basically double the daily gold trading on paper. Compare that to the annual gold mine production. We have double the daily gold trading in paper contracts and naked shorts, okay, than the annual gold mine production. Annual, that's a year, okay? This is why they call it the Crimex. This is why there's so much precious metal manipulation, because silver is the poor man's gold. Silver should be 16 to 1 ratio. It's 120 to 1. That hasn't been seen in 5,000 years. Now, when mines produce 1 ounce of gold, or doesn't matter what the unit of measurement, they find 8 ounces of silver. So when you talk about from a mining perspective, it's 8 to 1, and yet the price is 120 to 1. Think about that. We'll be right back into the break, folks.
Rich Scheben's with us. News in a flash. Rich, please continue.
Well, Vince, I want to talk about all these bailouts, because this is it's so unfair to the American people, because they are basically funding it, whether it be through stock buybacks going to the executive, whether it be, and I've spent hours on all these, so this audience should know what all these things are. I mean, big companies, big corporations, everybody's asking for a bailout, airlines, cruise lines, manufacturers. The banks got a big bailout in 2008. Everything is so fake and rigged and corrupt. Hedge funds are getting bailed out. It's basically an investment vehicle. It's kind of like a mutual fund, and a lot of these hedge funds are offshore, and they don't even have to adhere to SEC regulations. So, you have people who are, going short or going long, or a combination of the both, and they're basically just making bets with, it's typically high risk, but also high benefits in your profits. But the managers are rewarded, and we've gotten to the point where all these, everything is so leveraged, and they've done all this malinvestment. It's kind of like derivatives. There's dozens of names for it. It's kind of like, and pardon my analogy, like MSG. There's dozens of names for it that's in the food. Credit default swaps is just one of them regarding derivatives now. So it's a contract between two parties whose value is determined by the changes in the value of an asset. Could be bonds, equities, commodities, real estate, currencies. It's a side bet. It's betting on anything. It's a casino without the free drinks. And, they're basically selling some type of insurance protection hundreds of times and bundling it up and rebundling it and selling it and rebundling it up and then selling it. It's kind of like buying paper gold in shorts. You have multiple people owning the same quote-unquote coin. The whole thing is fake, and derivatives alone is measured in the quadrillions. So, when I hear about all these bailouts not going to the little people in Main Street and going to the big boys, you got to remember, I realize that we are the cleanest shirt in the dirty laundry, and you've heard me say this many times before. But when you print money, even though we are the world reserve currency, even though right now there's so much corruption in the world with fiat currencies and the wealthy is fleeing to America for U.S. dollar liquidity, even though there's double the amount of dollars abroad than there is here, one day there's going to be a line in the sand, and no one knows where that line is or when it occurs. But when that line occurs and they keep printing money, is their plan to hyperinflate the dollar so they can reduce government and corporate debt, where the bottom 93% loses purchasing power. Now, that's one of the reasons I use the term speculation with the agendas that are being driven right now regarding distractions for the supposed declassifications and all these things that the powers that be are trying to do. Now, it's just like that guy, Senator Barr, where he did he profited when he got the information in the Senate regarding short selling his stocks. That's called insider trading. This is why I say it's a lot less left, right, lot more aristocracy controlling the serfs. Don't be fooled by these paradigms. You got to remember, they take our money and put it literally into propaganda, lies, especially gaslighting, false flags, and hoaxes. I cannot say this enough. If I said this 100 times a show, it would not be enough. I mean, we literally have Russia, Ukraine, impeachment, going by second hand, third hand, fourth hand, rumors, gossip, propaganda, hoaxes. I mean, we don't even have validity or credibility in any type of mainstream media or government source right now. We have no one to call. Look at all the articles we've mentioned, Vince, about the DOJ, the FBI, the CIA, on how they protected Hillary Clinton and certain powers that be, who literally was going behind the people's backs to make profits in China and Ukraine. And yet they're calling President Trump and the Republicans that are doing this. And now the people are suffering. They're selling everything called margin calls to pay off the bills on debts that are going higher. It's ridiculous.
Going into a break and looking at how this depression is unfolding in front of us. The average gasoline price by state, lowest price, $1.64.9 in Oklahoma. That's the average price in Oklahoma. There was a station in Kentucky last week selling it for 99 cents a gallon. I really believe we are in the second Great Depression, and I believe it will get worse. And I don't believe recovery is anywhere near around the corner. All set? Cocked? Locked? Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Rich Scheben's with us. Last yesterday, we talked about the recklessness of Japan hosting the Worldwide Olympics in 2020. It's a global fly-in. In light of the corona panic, it seemed crazy to me to continue trying to host the Olympics. And for those of you who are unaware, the Olympics is an international orgy. I'm serious about that. So today we just learned that, just at the top of the hour news, that the Tokyo 2020 Olympics has been postponed for a year. That's a small step. It should actually be canceled in light of the corona panic. And one other piece of information I'd like you to think about. Some of the dominoes that are falling regarding the corona panic, and that's my term, corona panic. I coined it months ago. Well, there's a new delivery service. There's UPS, there's Federal Express, there's the Postal Service, Well, there's another one, and that's for babies. So for those who are thinking that their baby is coming, in the next few months, hospitals are canceling elective surgery and other surgeries. And baby delivery is at risk. So right now, there is the thought that if you have a baby coming, you should buy a tool. And that tool would be a small tripod to hold up your cell phone camera so that you can get coaching via video communications while you deliver your own baby. I am not exaggerating. So baby delivery may be a do-it-yourself proposition. Rich, have you heard of that?
Well, yeah, but you know what's going to happen? What if someone has an umbilical cord wrapped around their neck and they need a C-section or another, 1,000 type of emergencies that could happen? I mean, people aren't qualified in a household to handle that type of stuff. We don't have, that's how you get infections if you don't have the proper tools. There's just so many things that could go wrong. See, this is why I talk about agendas with this virus. Never let a crisis go to waste, say the Democrats. There could be beta tests. Everything is a beta test, just like Nancy Pelosi, like I mentioned in the article earlier. She's holding America hostage to try to make a deal so she can pass a stimulus package for the people. It's outrageous. It's unbelievable. It's surreal. It's hard to believe this is America. But this is happening all over the world. Like in Spain right now, they're saying, and the police are enforcing this, that you can't use your own backyard when you're in quarantine. So basically, is this a beta test to eliminate private property rights? You see, it doesn't matter what happens or why it's happening. As long as the powers that be in their dark rooms have these meetings and decide what freedoms and liberties they can take over, how can we create groupthink? How can we eliminate self-sufficiency? How can we eliminate thinkers and create more followers? How can we up the hysteria? Because when people are afraid, when people are broke, when people don't have skill sets outside of pushing buttons and being politically correct, that means they could be manipulated. You see? This is why I talk about these hidden agendas, but I also use the term speculation, because us little people on the ground, even though the powers that be are telegraphing a lot of their moves, we can't 100% prove it. And this is why, again, pardon the redundancy, the word speculation I use often. Vincent?
In Springfield, Missouri, the police department just announced some changes in the way they're going to deal with calls for help. And this is from the Springfield News Leader. It's the newspaper of Springfield, Missouri. So what's happening is people who call for the police will they'll continue their patrols. But if they come to your house, they're not coming in, which is really a good thing. They want you to come outside, and they want to make sure that you have social distancing, minimum of 6 feet. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing that people are paying attention, at least some people, and they are maintaining their distance. And that's a good thing. But I really believe that commerce is going to be impacted greatly, absolutely greatly, because the people who deliver packages are going to get sick of it, more sick of it than they already are, because they don't want to come to your house to deliver the package. They don't want to talk to you because they're concerned that you might give them something that will kill them, like the coronavirus. And their workload has increased. That's what's happening right now. I'm concerned. And if you want, class, to minimize your exposure, you can go to the online stores and buy online. Now, you really need to think about yourselves and your family. And you really need to think about who is in your house and who is under lockdown and who is wandering off. The young people get bored very easily. And the concern is, what about my friends? What about my friends? Well, let's talk about friends for just a second. The University of Tampa is widely reported to be the nation's finest university for the training of the arts. That would be the art of twerking. And 5 of their finest have tested positive for coronavirus after spring break. So I'm sure you all saw the news about spring break. We even got an email from a medical clinic telling us they'll be back after spring break and enjoy your spring break and things like that. And by the way, now they're closed. That medical office is closed now because they've been advised that through the association of that particular practice that they should close their office. So they have. And they even mentioned spring break. I don't know why anybody would mention spring break as a positive thing. I'm sure parents are just delighted to see their daughters bending over in public and showing showing what most people don't want to see. I mean, these sloppy people. But anyway, these are our finest university students from the widely reported University of Tampa, and having 5 of their elite twerkers testing positive for the virus. So you've heard that it's only the old people that are going to get it and die. Not true. Babies get it. Babies. Newborns. Children. 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, all the way on up. And we reported yesterday that in Italy, doctors a few days ago reported that they will not be treating anybody over 80. And the news is changing so fast. And a couple days later, it's 60. So, Rich Scheben, that's you and me, and pretty much the faculty of USA Prepares, except for maybe Gwyneth Isaacs. How about that?
Yeah, well, Vince, we're being how many examples have we given over the years how we're being biologically, chemically, and technologically destroyed, our bodies, whether it be 5G, cell phones, GMO foods, smart meters. We've given thousands of examples, just as the thousands of examples we've given on how we're being distracted, dumbed down, and divided by every group imaginable. This is a real thing. This is not made up. And until we have synergy, until we come together, until we have the same rules, laws, and accountability forever, everybody, things are not going to get better, because propaganda, hoaxes, false flags, lies, gaslighting, all these things are going to continue. That's where the taxpayers' money is going into, for the aristocracy to manage and control the serfs, and they don't care how many people die. And this is why we give ideas and solutions as well. And what some of the biggest things we talk about is being semi-self-sufficient, moving to the country, to rural areas, going off-grid, raising your own animals, maybe hunting and fishing for your own meat, maybe learning how to preserve your meat, grow your produce. You know, there's so many things that we have forgotten, with so many great 19th century skills that are fun. I mean, I've had thousands of people here over the years, you know, because they just wanted to see how I live. And we haven't taught our children that. We don't even have a mentor-protege relationship anymore. The powers that be are literally trying to demonize, discredit, and delegitimize older people. Older people, 60 and above, should be the teachers of America, from kindergarten to the highest, toughest course in college, not academia. We're teaching children theory and not practical experience. Everything we're doing is backwards. Every teacher should have a minimum of 15 years of successful experience in the private sector. Every teacher. We are letting, again, all this propaganda and all this manufacturing of perception of self-importance and self-preservation and political correctness to basically steer us in the wrong directions. And we cannot allow different people to have different rules, laws, and accountability based on what group we're in. because what it does is lower the bars of standards and expectations for a job. And Vince, you've heard me for 8 or 9 years now saying when that happens, it is systemic. It's like a cancer metastasizing. When you delegitimize work, lose its value, appreciation, and dignity, everything is going to fall. That is the catalyst, because that is what made America great. And now we're at the point you get a job based on what group you're in. And if it's okay with you, Vince, I think this is an appropriate time for me to, if I can remember it, to give my high jumper analogy. May I take a couple minutes, please?
Of course.
Thank you. My high jumper analogy, folks, for those of you who are new listeners, what this is back in the day when we look for a job, let's say I'm an employer, okay, and I'm employing high jumpers, which is an Olympic event, okay? You jump over a pole, okay? It's not pole vaulting, it's high jumping, okay? So back in the day, and this is an analogy, as an employer, I would have 500 people applying for a job, and I would put the bar at 6 feet high. Only 1% of the people for that first interview could pass. So I only have 5 people to interview for the second interview. And we're coming to a break, and I will finish this analogy after the break. Thanks for being here, folks.
So Rich's company is interviewing for high jumpers, and 1% has passed the first test. They've jumped 6 feet. Rich, please continue.
Thank you, Vince. So out of the 500 people who applied, 1% passed the first interview. And now I have 5 people to interview on the second interview. Okay? So the second interview is questions regarding what's going to make them a better high jumper longer so they can be more competitive to compete against my competition. So I'm going to ask, what's your workout regimen like? What's your weight? Do you keep your weight down? What's your diet like? Are you the best person for the job? And then I would choose, back in the day, from those 5 people, based on performance, based on hard work, effort, proven results, and qualifications. Now, today, I can't do that. As an employer, now keep in mind, the big employers are getting the bailouts. They're getting the stock buyback so they can enrich themselves. At the same time, they're cannibalizing small business and destroying the middle class. So keep this in mind. So today, if I put the bar at 6 feet, I would offend people because I would be a controversial, extremist, racist, bigot, sexist, misogynist, homophobe, conspiracy theorist, intolerant, violent hater with an anti in front of every word, ism, ist, and phobia on the back of every word. And yes, I like saying that, and yes, I do say that often because it fits. So, I have to have the bar at 6 inches for today's interview in lieu of 6 feet. So, 1% is still the rule. However, it's the other way around. Now, for the second interview, I have to interview 495 people. So I have to go through the applications in lieu of the questions I asked for the way things used to be, based on hard work, effort, proven results, and qualifications. Now I have to go through the applications and see, what is your gender? What gender do you identify as? What is your shade of skin pigmentation? What is your sexual orientation or your religion? Just like Elizabeth Warren. Hiawatha from the Pocahontas tribe. Okay? This is America today. This is one of the reasons, and one of the main reasons our economy is in destruction. This is one of the main reasons the middle class is becoming extinct. This is one of the main reasons that 40 to 50% of Americans can't come up with a $500 emergency bill. This is why, the main reason why 70% of Americans don't have $1,000 of savings. This is one of the main reasons why 80% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. There's no more barometers. There's no more chance for success and prosperity. because we've allowed political correctness to destroy everything that America was about. And this is one of the reasons I talk about these stories, these published articles in the public domain, because it almost sounds surreal. If I was a Twilight Zone writer, when Twilight Zone back in, I guess, 60s, 70s, whenever it was popular, I couldn't come up with this stuff. We're beyond Orwellian 1984 stuff. Where parents don't even have the right to tell their children not to change their gender and ruin their bodies and their health forever over the powers that be. It's hard to believe, but we are here because we have lowered the bars of standards and expectations for getting a job and keeping a job, and this is metastasized like a cancer all over, not just the country, but the Western world. Vincent?
Well, I was thinking about what you just said, and my understanding is that jumping Joe Biden he's probably the candidate for the Democrat Party for President of the United States. And my understanding is that he is going to be conducting a gynecological test to determine his running mate.
Now, this is one of the
comments?
demands that Nancy Pelosi has.
Yeah. And by what do I mean by that, class? He has announced that he's identified somewhere between 4 and 6 people, depending on which news article you read, of the women that he is going to pick. So it's going to be a woman. So he has implemented exactly the kind of thing that you've been talking about, Rich Scheben. Rich Scheben's with us. So, Rich, the Fed, I'm paraphrasing when I say this, indicated that they were going to pump and do whatever they needed to do to keep the markets viable. And yesterday, it was before yesterday, announced it, and then the market crashed about 500 points yesterday. And it opened with vengeance today, and it's kind of peaked and it's going down again. So it's only up 1,400 points. But this has got to be absolutely manufactured illusion. What do you think about that?
Oh, absolutely. I've talked about this till I'm blue in the face. You know, all these definitions. You've heard me talk about earnings and fair value and leverage and fundamentals and market this and market that. And I've given presentations on inflation and deflation and stagflation, liquidity, solvency, valuations, price to earnings, price to sales, GDP, credit, debt, core business of corporations, money printing, free market, supply and demand, velocity of money, profits. All these, it almost doesn't even pay to discuss them anymore because all the definitions have changed.
How about this? Boeing is one component of the Dow Jones Industrial Average 30, right? And Boeing is up today 16.6% today. They announced that they're going to halt production in Washington State for 2 weeks due to the coronavirus pandemic, with a shutdown affecting 70,000 workers and causing the firm to halt trading its shares. So for some reason, it's up, but the trading in the shares was halted, and it's going to affect the layoff of 70,000 people.
Right.
And that's good news.
And Boeing was there was an article about 2 weeks ago saying that if Boeing didn't get a $60 million bailout, or $60 billion bailout, pardon me, they would go under. So basically, what is keeping the market going? That's why I went through all the definitions that I've talked about over the years. What's keeping the market going is liquidity. That is it. Money printing, and the only reason we can get away with this is because we are the world reserve currency. But there's a fine line. That's why I discussed this earlier. You know, when you inflate the money supply, our medium of exchange, and then you start saying, for what? Because the gray line gets thicker and thicker. It brings down consumer confidence, and you throw in economic or Keynesian economics and group identity politics, then you start talking about value, and then everything falls apart. See, when the central banks print money out of thin air, and then we have fractional reserve lending and stock buybacks, this is all welfare for the rich. So we have defaults, we have bankruptcies increasing, and what the powers that be are trying to do is save the big guys. When I would love to see all the stimulus go to the people instead of the big guys. Why should we keep bailing them out, especially when they're doing stock buybacks to enrich themselves, especially their executives? This is ridiculous. The whole system is rigged. The whole system is fake and phony. Now, Donald Trump inherited a very rigged, phony system. And that's why I talked about Keynesian economics. Basically, it's central bank, top-down, no accountability, elite control, corruption and manipulation created for an incognito caste system. In other words, the status quo, looking at it from a different side, where deficits and debts don't matter. So now the government is spending a lot of money because the private sector is broke. This is why all these unitive measures I've talked about for years, GDP, CPI and inflation, unemployment, all these numbers they don't even follow its definition anymore. We have to look at what's equivalent to making the people happy. And elite interventionism, like print now, inflate, buy now, pay later, all these economic Keynesian teachings are allowing governments to shift asset and liability columns and create accounting manipulation. So goods and services and prosperity, everything is out of whack. Every definition doesn't mean anything anymore. And that's one of the reasons I keep going back to the definition of work. Because when you devalue and lose appreciation, lose the dignity, lose the... based on what group you're in, there's no validity to the whole system. Political correctness is responsible for basically restructuring the whole system and giving the money from the bottom 93% to the top elite, who controls information and especially hoaxes, lies, propaganda, false flags, etc. This is what we are in. It almost doesn't even having an economic discussion almost has no validity anymore. This is why the Nazi left, the authoritarian, communist, socialist, tyrannical dictatorship, totalitarian fascism wants to control the media. That's why they want to control the police. That's why they want to eliminate due process. Okay, they are literally changing precedents all around the country. To eliminate due process, that's what all this, Kavanaugh's a gang rapist thing was about. That's what they're doing. They want to enhance government schools and be anti-homeschool, where parents don't even have control of their kids' curriculum. They're anti-private property. The lawyers and judges literally have sold out the little people in the name of so-called quote-unquote justice. And they've taken voter and election fraud with it. We need to start acting like citizens who expect the government to work for us, not the way around. Now, none of us that I know, including yourself and myself, Vincent, all the shows that I've been on the years, I don't know anyone who's anti-government. We're anti-too big, corrupt, overspending, incorporated, elite control, manipulative, anti-constitutional. That type of government we're against. But we're not anti-government. Things have gotten so corrupt in America. Why aren't these declassifications that we've been calling for years coming out? Where is the frickin' rule of law? Has it gone to the highest bidder? Sure looks like it. Vince?
Okay. So I received a communique from one of our class, and it said something like the New Jersey government suspended the Second Amendment. Here's what that means. That was in quotes. What's happened is there was an executive order from the governor that ordered all non-essential retail businesses to be closed to the public. Now, the order does not include licensed firearms dealers on the list of essential businesses. So what the state police did was they shut down the background check website. So if you want to buy a rifle, pistol, shotgun, revolver in the state of New Jersey, you need to have, from a dealer, you need to have a background check in order to comply with their legal system. But the website is down, so the background checks cannot be performed, which means that gun sales have stopped from gun dealers in the state of New Jersey. Now, is that a violation of the right to bear arms? I guess that's going to be something that'll be drawn out in a protracted adventure in the court system. So I communicated this thought with some other people who are in our class, and the same thing is happening in California. Now, is it happening in your state class? Has the background system been shut down? Now, here in Missouri, if you want to, and I can only address Missouri, but if you want to buy a rifle, pistol, shotgun, revolver from someone who owns it, and you're not a felon, you're free to do that without going through a background check, without having it registered. Because in Missouri, our Constitution says that the right to bear arms shall not be questioned. But that's not the case in all of our states. So now the question is, we've heard that people can be arrested without trial, according to the federal government right now. Abraham Lincoln did the same thing during the War of Northern Aggression. He had people arrested who disagreed with him. They just were put in prison. He suspended trials. He violated the Constitution. But he got away with it. And he's considered one of America's finest. And it looks like we're heading down the same road. It's a pretty scary time. What do you think,
Vince, what is happening is what I've been saying. We're seeing agendas being drawn up by totalitarian, fascist dictators, and I don't mean President Trump, I mean the left, and they're beta testing pretty much everything they can get away with right now. And this is not just in America or in the West, but around the world. So I fear that freedom and liberty, if the people don't stick together for the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, and have the same rules, laws, and accountability for everybody, you can count on your kids and grandkids not having any freedom and liberty at all.
Let's talk about something else that's happening. Class, it's happening very quickly, faster than anyone could have imagined. There's a hospital chain called Mercy. There are lots of Mercy facilities throughout the country. And in Springfield, they have set up some tents outside the hospital. So you will be evaluated in one of these tents before you're allowed in the emergency room. So for those who think that, this is a lie, this is a hoax, this is a fraud, to use their words, this is BS, that's what's happening in Mercy right now. And their website is mymercy.net. And what they're saying is patients who are less ill are asked to call doctors or go online to be assessed using an e-visit. That's the letter E dash the word visit. So now you will be evaluated or assessed electronically through an e-visit. You will talk to someone who will do some preliminary triage before you get to the tent for further triage. That's what's happening right here in Springfield, Missouri. This is pretty scary stuff. So if you think that the corona panic is not real, it is real. And there are people who have been arrested for the theft of toilet paper. One guy had the guts to steal 66 rolls, and he's facing 5 years in the clink because he allegedly stole 66 rolls of toilet paper from a hotel. One guy stole one, and he's been held on a $5,000 bail or bond for stealing a single roll of toilet paper. So I received a communique from one of the water filtration companies, and that shipments are delayed. And I'm receiving communique after communique saying, as you know, the coronavirus, ... And because of that, we are experiencing delays in products. It's impacting services. But, remember, we still love you, and, stay safe. I mean, I'm embellishing that, but with the, we love you part. But what's happening is companies are sending us communications telling us that there are delays in product availability, and therefore there's shipment delays. I ordered a couple products on the internet, a couple plumbing products, and it was really simple. It was just so simple. I just ordered these items, and they're small, and the whole thing was like $15 or $16 for the whole shipment. And now I'm finding out that I don't know when I'll get it, if ever, because of the corona panic. Now the FBI, on Thursday, last Thursday, told police agencies that there were some groups of people who were urging their followers. Now, I'm not advocating this. I'm just telling you what the FBI has told police agencies, that there's a group of followers, extremists, who have been advocating that their followers use spray bottles to spread bodily fluids where people will contact them. Now, what does that mean? Class, I'm telling you this for your safety. That means all doorknobs are suspect. All handrails are suspect. Anything that you might touch, shopping carts, are suspect, in my opinion, at this time. So my advice to you is really, really simple. It's unchanged. It's stay home. Stay home. Let me say it a different way. Stay home. Rich Scheben, any thoughts on what I just said?
Well, I don't disagree with you, but I've always had a different train of thought, whether it be building antibodies or, playing in the roughest areas of New York City where I grew up. Even though I grew up in a good area, but I played in some pretty bad areas, and I'm in the woods. I've been nose to nose with a lot of bears and grizzly bears and mountain lions, and I'm not saying this virus is not real. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that fear and paranoia and extra hype and panic could end up making you more immunocompromised. Now, I want to mention one last article because I know we have seconds left.
Well, hang on just one second. Okay, what I just said, the FBI is telling the police to be careful because there's a group of individuals who are encouraging the spread of sickness. And what I passed on to our class was...
Those people, Vince, should be arrested. If people are actually spreading something that could be deadly, they should be arrested. That's the problem with political correctness. We do not have laws anymore, and the laws are based on what group you're in. But I just want to mention one...
by extension, hang on. And therefore, by extension, I'm advising extreme caution and avoiding excess risk of our class. So if you don't have to go out, my opinion is if you don't have to, don't. If you sprain your ankle and you would normally go to the emergency room and you think it's going to heal by itself, don't go. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that. You know, I've said this on this show today. I've said it many times. I think we're going to have to rethink urban, suburban America. Wherever there's lots of people, we're going to have to rethink about moving rural, decentralizing, relearning skill sets, and being a little more self-sufficient. And I've said this more. I say this almost every show.
Okay, so let's extrapolate that to a practical situation. So there are factory farms, and the factory farms, let's say for chickens. So those factory farms have a chicken house that's probably 40 feet wide and 350, 400 feet long, and those chickens are packed wall to wall to wall. They can hardly turn around without bumping into another chicken, okay? They live 49 days before they're harvested, gathered up, and killed, and defeathered and packaged for human consumption. Okay, those chickens live on antibiotics because they're in such close proximity they can infect each other with all kinds of diseases. Well, contrast that to the traditional farm that has chickens running around all kind of loose on the grass. And they have so much grass that the sun disinfects the poop so they don't infect themselves, so they don't need antibiotics. That is the contrast. That's what we're talking about. That's what Rich is saying.
Because I raise
That's what you're saying.
On chickens, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is, if you pack and stack people the same way that you pack and stack chickens, they're going to get sick, and it's obvious. That's where the high concentrations of the corona panic are, where people are packed and stacked. Not so much in the country. Rich Scheben, thank you so much for being with us today.